I'd like to welcome everybody and welcome, make sure that you sign in if you did not. My name is Arthur. I work at the engineering division. Among my other projects in town, I oversee our stormwater management program, which is basically our EPA MS4 compliance. Part of that compliance is yearly basis. We do an IDDE training, and I'm sure if you guys all been here before, you're kind of familiar with it, so it's kind of like a refresher. Talking to some other communities, they do like a longer course, and then the following year do a refresher course. So I think the way we have ours is like a small and compact, 20, 30 minutes of the information you need, and we kind of repeat it every year. I know it might be repetitive, but at the same time, I think so much stuff goes on without the year that it's good to just refresh on what we're looking for in illicit discharge. And everybody here, that the way that this is designed is for people that are out in the field, people that do inspections, people that also take care of the grounds and stuff that might be in the area where they might see some illicit discharges. So I'll just kind of get into what we're going to be talking about in our training. So topics to be covered today is like a little introduction. I just kind of went over that. What is stormwater? That's what we want to stop pollution from getting into. The town's stormwater program, we'll go over what NPDES is very briefly. What an illicit discharge is, how to identify illicit discharge, what you do when you suspect one in the field if you're looking for one, and then good housekeeping, best management practices at our own facilities and at work sites. Obviously, we don't want the public to be polluting our stormwater, but we also don't want to be doing it ourselves. And we are as an entity, as a public works who does a lot of work, different job sites and construction sites. The other thing we did add this year, just to keep in mind as we go through this, we're doing like a quiz. It's a 10-question quiz. It's not binding. You don't have to pass it, and you don't get a certification. But it's kind of just we'll recap everything that we went over today. So I'll give you that at the end of the class, and then we can go over it. So the first thing is, what is stormwater? And then you probably, if you do live in town, you actually pay a stormwater fee. So it's a thing that we've been over on very different during our public education program. What stormwater is. If you look over here on the right when you walked in, we do have a bunch of stuff that we have on display at the community markets, and we do some school presentations. So just the basics of what stormwater is and what we're trying to save. Stormwater is like any runoff from rain or snowmelt that drains in the town's drainage system and ultimately ends up in our groundwater, our ponds, streams, wetland, or resource areas. And then this is a graphic that we use in a lot of in our campaign. We have a big one over there, and it kind of shows what happens. And it's kind of elementary, but it actually is things that people don't think about, especially at homeowners. That when it does rain, where does that rain carries anything that's on the ground at the time. So it carries with it any pollutants such as oils, fertilizers, sand, which is like sediment, trash, dog waste, fertilizers. So these pollutants eventually get into the water and then drain out into our ponds and streams and wetland resources. So that's what we're trying to stop today. In essence, that's what illicit discharge is, but we'll kind of go into more detail. So NPDES MS4 Permit. It's a huge acronym. It's a lot of different things. The one thing that I always try to tell people, like, it sounds very confusing to lay people, like NPDES MS4 Permit. Like, all right, we need a permit, like driver's permit or something. But in reality, permit is the same as regulations. So NPDES MS4 regulations is something that is overseen by the EPA. Every city and town has to do it in some sort of way. Bigger towns might have different challenges. Smaller towns that are like us, we kind of all have to do the same thing under the same regulations. That's why it's called MS4, which is the M and then plus 4 S's, separate storm sewer systems. So that means we don't have a combined system. That means our drainage goes by itself, and I'll show you where it goes, and it goes untreated into the into our streams or wetlands or waterways. So what are the EPA requirements that we have to do under these MS4 NPDES regulations or permit? We have to do public education outreach. Like I said, we have a table at the community market. Sometimes we do school presentations. We also, do a lot of outreach online, social media. You might see posts if you're members, if you're friends with the Facebook for the town. We'll put out, every couple of months or so, different notices on how people can help and not pollute the stormwater. Public involvement, participation, kind of the same thing. We're trying to get people to do different projects in town that might, like stenciling or help out with different projects that can help give out, help our fill our requirements. We have the illicit discharge detection and elimination program that is part of today's our training. Also, we're doing a lot of inspecting of our outfalls and mapping our stormwater system. Construction site stormwater runoff control. So we also making sure that contractors, when they're doing construction, are using best management practices on their sites. Stormwater management and new development and redevelopment. So when someone does try to build something, that we're making sure that they're in mind, they're keeping our stormwater regulations in mind. And then good housekeeping and pollution prevention. Again, we are, as an entity, we don't want to actually contribute to the pollution. So the next would be, what the difference is between our sanitary sewer system and our storm drain system. It's a lot of confusion because a lot of towns, a lot of cities, a lot of places around the world are different. But in our town, this is basically what it looks like. So we have two separate systems. We have a sanitary sewer, which is when you flush your toilet, and then you have the storm sewer when it rains. Sometimes people do hook up their, sump pump to the storm drain, but it's all supposed to be clean water. And the reason is, I don't know if anybody knows, but where our sanitary system discharge goes all to Lowell, and then gets treated, and then gets the effluent goes into the Merrimack River. The water, when it goes into a catch basin, there's no treatment to it. It just goes into wherever it's connected, which, could be an outfall that goes into, a wetland. So if someone dumps into a catch basin or someone puts a hose in there, it's directly polluting whatever's in the other end of it. So it's not being treated at all. In comparison, there's combined systems in some other towns where it might get treated, and so a lot of people do have that confusion, and a lot of our public education is to tell people what the difference is so that they won't do it. So here's a kind of example of our drainage system. We had it mapped about 3-4 years ago. So if you do have access to our GIS layer, you can go and see. You can see the yellow is the drain lines, and the squares are the catch basins, and you got the little triangles, which are the outfalls. This is actually Long Pond. So you can see if you do dumps. So this is very important for us to have, so that say we do get a call and we find that someone's dumping, and say there's some suds or something coming out at a stream. We go to our map and say, all right, where is it coming from? Where's the possibilities? So this is was a very important big step for us to have our drainage system all mapped out. So our next is, so the reason why we have it mapped out for is required by our NPDES EPA permit. But what they have is they deemed waterways in town as impaired. That doesn't mean like you can't go in them and it's polluted and they'll die. It's just that they have reached what they call the total TMDL, which is total max daily loading, or limit of different pollutants. So knowing that, we have to now make sure that we don't like for example, some of them have reached the total max daily limit of chlorine, so that means we have to now limit any salt in that area. So we do have a list of the impairments. So this is different things that they find in waterways around town. Fecal coliform is probably from sewer. Chloride is from salt, from our salting. Phosphorus, again, probably from sewer. Mercury in fish, some chemical, maybe some chemical processes going on in some factories, and then we have dissolved oxygen, PCBs, E. coli, another one that's in sewers. Not only in sewers, but also in, when I say sewer, also could be a septic tank. Especially disk transparency, that's when the water gets so cloudy that they can't see it, so they try to, we see where that either sediment is coming from. And then we have some invasive species also that are found in our waters. This is what the EPA tells us that, that's why we're here. We're here to stop, to lower these total max daily loads of these impairments and then to get rid of them. And that's why, detecting illicit discharges is very important. So this is kind of a list. I won't go through this, but this is all of our impaired waters and where they are. So we have the sheen, which is, we all know the sheen, but also maybe the most important is the Merrimack River, because it's, a lot of drinking water. And not only here, but a lot of communities use it for drinking water. And then different ones, Long Pond, I think a lot of people are familiar with Long Pond, and, they have, it hasn't gotten better, but there is, these are the impairments that EPA has deemed on these, on the waterways. So what our IDDE program is, and why we're here specifically today, and which is a part of our NPS permit, is these are the steps we had to go through. We had to establish legal authority, so that means that we got to establish a bylaw so that if we do find someone dumping something, we can actually do something about it. We just don't tell them stop, and they'll stop. We mapped our stormwater sewer system so that if we do find illicit discharge, we can go and identify it and find where it is. We did inventory and ranking of our outfalls. So actually, initially we thought we had 650. As of now, we completed our dry weather outfall screening. So we worked with a consultant, and they went out to every outfall in town, about 4. We looked at 650 of them and then realized, well, only 450 of them were actually outfalls connected to our drainage system that we own and not private. So at that point, we had to wait till it didn't rain for 2 days and go out and make sure there's no flow coming out of them. And if we did find flow, we would test it. And we did find a lot of hits where there's E. coli, and then so we are now, the following year now, investigate all of them, which is our catchment investigation. And then we're going to identify the illicit sources of where these illicit discharges are coming from, and then follow-up screenings. And then employee training, which we're here today, so which we're oh, I don't know what's going on here. Pray. All right, so now we get to to exactly what we're here for. And so it's illicit discharge. So it's called IDDE training, and then the first 2 letters are illicit discharge. So illicit discharge is any discharge to our drainage system that is not composed of entirely stormwater, which is, the universal statement that I think we should all, if you do leave here, that's what you should remember. Anything that's not stormwater should not be going in there. There is some exceptions, and I'll go through them, but basically if it's not stormwater, if it's not rain, snow melt, it should not be going into our stormwater system. So that's the most, so what exactly are we looking for? So the EPA knows that we don't live in a perfect world, and certain things are going to get drained into our drainage system. So the biggest one is like firefighting. If it's like someone's, if there's a house on fire and all the water runs into our drainage system, that's allowed. Obviously, I don't think it's the cleanest water, but there's no way around that. So we have to make allowances for that. Landscape irrigation can go in if you're watering your lawn and it goes into the street. They do allow that. Uncontaminated groundwater, which shouldn't be a problem. It's just groundwater. Air conditioned condensation, irrigation systems, footing drains, lawn watering, individual resident car washing, which We do tell people not to wash their car, let the suds go into the street. We'll tell them not to do that. You should actually just do it on your lawn so that the water can go into the grass. Another big thing in town is swimming pools, and like a dechlorinated swimming pool is okay by the EPA standards, but we don't suggest that. We suggest that you actually put that into your lawn and let it infiltrate into the ground. But it's hard to tell if it's dechlorinated or not, so we just try to tell people to think twice about this and the worst part about it is if it's too dechlorinated and it has algae growing over an entire year or entire off-season, then that water is bad for the environment too, because it's highly organic and causes algae blooms if it goes into like a catch basin where a stream is connected. And then, residential building washing, so these things are allowed under the permit, so we're not worried about them. Like water line flushing or hydrant flushing, that one's another one too. I know we do a lot of that. So the types of illicit discharges that we look for in town, there's two big ones. There's point sources and non-point sources. Point sources is like if it was, that kind of like you'd see like a stereotypical factory where it's like, green stuff is oozing out and it's going into the river every day. That's like a point source. We go find and identify that. But then you have things that can be point sources, but they can be motor oil. Say a guy has a shop and he's bumping all his oil in the back and it's raining and it's going into the stream, and that becomes a point source. Pet waste is a big one. Different types of motor oils, paints, cleaning products, fertilizers, hazardous waste, trash, chlorinated pool water, sediment from maybe construction sites, if you see that, soaps and detergents, and sanitary sewer, which is also, not only from sewer, but effluent from say, septic tanks or something. So all these are illicit discharges that we look for. So places that you guys will see it, a lot of people that do go in the field, roadways, driveways, catch basins, wetlands, rivers, you can see the indication in the river if someone's dumping upstream in the streams, parking lots where people might, dump something and then it gets washed out. Industrial sites, building material storage areas. I know there's a lot of places in town where contractors do keep, stockpiles of salts and sand. Construction sites themselves, if you don't use best management practices. And then, gas stations, vehicle repair, which is a big one. And you'd always see, like, if, they always have the sand that they throw on the dry cleaning methods. And, if you have a gas station, and you have a leak with gas or oil, you don't wash it out. You obviously sweep it, put some sand on and sweep it. So these are things that, the tips that we tell people, but also this is the areas where the illicit discharge is going to occur. So what's the indicators of illicit discharge? And these are the things that you probably want to look out for, and we do have some pictures. So we have foam. Foam indicates that there may be some vehicle washing activities or an illicit discharge, maybe like washing machine might be discharging. Sometimes houses might have two sewer out connections, maybe just the washing machine is hooked up to the back of the house and goes near a stream. Oil sheen, obviously if there's an oil leak somewhere. Cloudiness in waterways indicates might be some sediment, some sort of suspended solids coming maybe from the street. Color and odor, so that might indicate that there's something being dumped in there or sewage. Excessive sediment, so if the stream looks like it's a lot of dirt has been slowly been piling up there, that's an indication. Sanitary waste with optical enhancers. So what that means is if you ever do laundry detergent in your house, it has an optical enhancer in it. It has this little like gleaming to it. You can see that in the water. And that's why, I don't know why it's there. It must be a chemical reason why it's there, but it has this certain glare, so that's why it has optical enhancers, so that it indicate that someone's house is hooked up into a drainage system. And then orange staining. So if there's orange staining in water, that can indicate that someone's dumping some sort of minerals or chemicals in there. But all that being said, They also have false indicators. Now, I'm not going to say that, I don't want you guys need to make that determination in the field, but it's good to know. Even if you did see a false indicator in the field, or you see something like this, we would ask you to notify us so we can go and take a look at it. So foam, for example, there's a natural way of foam does happen in nature. Sometimes an animal might die, and then the animal fats, and then if the water is exactly turbulent enough, it can create foam. And we do see that, and it's typically a little bit different than foam you'd see coming from soap or anything. Sewage smell, sometimes, again, if decomposing plants and organic materials and water, especially in the springtime, it might smell like sewage right when it kind of turns over. Natural gas leaks smell like sewage. Sometimes when you do open up a drain line, you might think it smells like sewage, but there might be and I've seen this in the field, I've seen where it's a gas leak near it, so it kind of goes into the drainage structure, and it smells like this might be sewage in there. Natural bacteria can cause oil sheen on water, so sometimes it is deceiving, and it looks like it might be someone dumping oil, but it might be natural. And then algae blooms. Sometimes, obviously, algae blooms are natural also. They're not necessarily always caused by someone dumping or some fertilizer being disposed of nearby. But we like to take a look at it, and if you do see it, algae blooms. And they do vary in color. Some of them might be more alarming than others, but some of them are natural. So that's why we say some of them, that's why I want to give you the false indicators also. So I have a bunch of pictures of things that we see around town to look out for. So pet waste, that's the big one. A lot of people who walk their dogs every day, and then after pick up with the waste with the baggie. And then some people will walk their dog every day and dump it in the same catch basin every day. And then by the time we get around to it, which is during our catch basin cleaning program, the whole thing is full. I mean, there's cities, if you ever Google it, there's cities and towns that their whole downtown was flooded because someone was from dog waste being dumped. I think it was in Canton, from someone dumping their dog waste in it, and it clogged the entire system. So we tell people that has to go into the trash. What we do is we do our catch basin cleaning every year. I don't know if Dave kind of took it over, but and we go out, and as they're cleaning them, they're also inspecting them. So they're finding things that are in there. So if they find oil, they find pet waste, they tell us. And when they do, I go out and we'll flyer the entire neighborhood. We'll go and put hang tags on people's doors and just let the whole entire neighborhood, and we assume that someone in that neighborhood is walking their dog, and then we tell them to stop. And then obviously it's cleaned up, and then the following year we've seen this over a couple of years now where we've done this, and then the following year when we clean it, there's no dog waste there anymore. So it's all about informing people, and I'm not going to say these people are bad people. I think they're not informed, and then they just kind of do things like that. Sometimes they just throw them in the woods, and then in the winter time when the leaves fall off, they're just all over everywhere in the trees. So that's a big one, and that's why I probably talk about it more than most things. Oil sheen in water. Here's a picture of oil sheen. This was an area that we looked at in town, and you can see like the sheen on it. This was near a like a commercial site, so that we ended up letting the owner know about some barrels that he had in the back of his facility. Dumping. People will go out and just doing work at their house. Will go out and just dump. And I've not seen this here. I've seen this in another community I worked at where people would, just a whole bucket of paint, just dump it out there. And they'll just go out and do that and then not think about it. Another thing is, this was actually in town where someone would just clean out their barrel full of concrete and just wash it out into the catch basin, and you can actually see the dirt around it. Like, we found out, let them know. Dumpster runoff, which is dumpster runoff is a thing. Obviously, the dumpster has whatever in it. It could be anything. And this one is next to a catch basin. This is not in town, but you have to keep them covered, because when it rains, if it's not covered, then when it rains, all the water goes in there, and then there's holes in the bottom of it, and then anything that's in there, it leaches out with it. So that's just like a huge no-no, and And that's why that water looks like that, because it just pretty much takes anything that's in there and it cleans it out, and it gets carried into the water, into that catch basin. Here's some orange in the discoloration in the waterway. So this wasn't taken in town, but we do get calls for this. And what happens is, I don't know if you guys know, but I guess we did have wells at one point, and we did have and it was high in iron, I guess, the water that's out there. And we do have streams. When the water is high in iron, there's bacteria that actually go in and eat it, and then that creates like a rust. So and that creates rust because it's oxidizing the iron. So that's what's creating the orange color. So when you do see it, we still like to go look at it and rule out if anything else, but most of the times it's because of the bacteria eating the iron and creating that rust color. So that's what that orange is. And it looks alarming when you do drive by it. Suds in the stream, this is actually on Sheen Street. We went out and looked at it. We tested it and realized it was natural, but it does look, if you drive by and see that, we'd like to know if you see a lot of suds in there. Trash. Trash is not necessarily like a point source where it's like polluting. Obviously, over thousands of years, that the plastic is going to dissolve and cause problems, but we'd like to know about it if there's that much trash in the waterway. And also indicates that if someone's dumping all that trash in there, then they're going to be dumping something else going to be getting dumped in there too. So, vehicle fluid leaks. So if you're at this is actually in a neighborhood where a guy didn't fix his car, or he didn't have money, or he just didn't ever end up fixing it, so he just kept leaking. Every day was oil leak in front of his house. He put a tray up there, he put hay up there, and when it rained, what happened, all the oil was going down into our drainage system. So we ended up telling him to stop, but that's something to look out for. Sediment, this was actually called in by DPW. Some guy was reseeding his lawn and it started raining. And there's a catch basin in there. You actually can see it, but there's one right there. And all of it just started going into the street. And we told him he had to stop and clean this all up. And he went and cleaned the whole street up. And then we had a catch basins being cleaned anyway, but that's what he would be responsible. He probably would fill that whole catch basin up with sediment. Hoses and catch basins, we catch a lot of people like this. Actually, it's gone down. I haven't got that many calls on them, but it was very common for when I first started here, that people were just like putting going in front of their house, draining their pool, and putting it directly into the catch basin. So we'd see them, we'd go, actually, we have a separate hang tag for that, and we'd let them know to stop doing that, or we'd go knock on the door and ask them. So we do see that, let us know. And then odors, if you're driving by and if you're working on a catch basin or you're working on a drainage structure and you do smell sewage or petroleum or gas, sulfide, which I think all three of those first three ones can be mixed up with each other. And then if there's a random chemical smell too, we'd like to know. So at this point, we just have this video, a short video, kind of just sums up everything that we just talked about. It gives you a lot of visuals, more than probably what I could have done with pictures. So I'll play that.
Quiz question. What is one of the most cost-efficient practices for finding and stopping water pollution? Here are several hints. Number 1, this practice has been largely overlooked in the past by local governments. Number 2, it can help meet permit and regulatory requirements. And 3, it can improve stream health by achieving significant reductions in pollutants. The answer? IDDE, Illicit Discharge Detection and Elimination. So what exactly is IDDE? If you walk alongside almost any stream in an urban or suburban area, you will see the openings of many pipes leading directly into the stream. These pipes carry runoff from a multitude of land uses, such as streets, parking lots, and rooftops. This stormwater runoff enters the stream only during or after a rainstorm. However, some of these pipes carry flow to the streams at times other than rainstorms. Unnoticed and undetected, Some of these pipes carry sewage, detergents, bacteria-laden water, and even toxic chemicals, quietly polluting our streams, rivers, and lakes. These flows are known as illicit discharges, and IDDE is in the process of finding and fixing these hidden culprits. It's like being a stream detective. Recent analysis conducted by the Center for Watershed Protection for one local government attributed nearly 100% of nutrient pollution in the local watershed to outfalls with potential illicit discharge problems. Samples exceeded certain indicator thresholds, which means they're much more likely to contribute unacceptable levels of potentially harmful bacteria and pathogens. So how do we go about finding and fixing these hidden stream culprits? It begins with walking local waterways and looking for pipes coming out of the banks. This is important because you may find pipes that are not on existing maps or have gone undetected. This is done during a dry period so that all flowing outfalls can be detected. Once at the outfall, conduct a quick assessment to determine if an illicit discharge may be present. Look for algae or benthic growth in the bottom of the pipe, perhaps sewage fungus, poor pool quality, corrosion of the pipe, odor, the presence of floatables, or discoloration of the water. Since illicit discharges may be hard to detect, a series of water quality tests should be performed to determine the source of the water and get quantitative discharge measurements. Ammonia is the primary indicator of the presence of an illicit discharge. High levels likely indicate a wastewater or sewage discharge, and while some analyses can be done in the field, tests for potassium, fluoride, nitrogen, phosphorus, or bacteria are best conducted back at the lab. If detected and confirmed, a storm drainage area investigation is conducted to determine the source of the problem. This involves moving up the pipe or up the drainage system and testing the water at outfalls or manholes along the way until the source is isolated. So how do we eliminate these culprits? Because many sources of pollution are hidden from everyday view, eliminating illicit discharges involves working with businesses, homeowners, local governments, utility departments, and watershed groups to restore and protect clean waterways. It can involve redirecting pipes and drains to the sanitary sewer, plugging floor drains, fixing sewer line leaks, and other practices. It is also important to quantify and accurately report on the problems fixed and the pollutants eliminated. This shows that these efforts are effective and feasible to implement. It gives the local program due credit for permit and compliance programs, and communicates that water quality is being improved. To learn more about IDDE and other strategies we can use to protect and promote clean water, follow the links on the right side of the Center for Watershed Protection.
All right, so that's done, and that's a good video. Kind of shows, like I said, visuals of all the stuff I kind of talked about. The final part is construction and worksite best management practices, not only for contractors, but us in-house. And these are a bunch of tips that we give to contractors, but I think we also, under our regulations, we don't allow them to do. So we don't want them to store materials near storm drains so that, you know, if they can leak over or get washed out in the rain. Schedule excavation, and then things is for in-house too, like when it's not going to be raining. Use silt sacks and catch basins, hay bales, fences around construction sites. Protect our stockpiles. Use soil stabilization and temporary seeding if needed for large piles. And then another big one is never pump water directly into the town's graded catch basin, which people do. Contractors do that, and I'm sure we don't do that. Good housekeeping. So I don't know if I do every quarter. I go out and inspect our facilities, which is basically the DPW and the parks facilities, and that's what we have to do under this permit. So I go out and take pictures and look at a couple of different things. I have a huge checklist, but basically what we're trying to do is, you know, not become a point source. And there's a bunch of different things that we do, and we don't have anything that's that I see that's done. Obviously, we're getting a new DPW building at some point, so a lot of these things might get, you know, the small things that I'm seeing, like, you know, a little bit of concrete work that needs to be done might get addressed at some point. So yeah, these are kind of things that we that we do, like, they're not wash down or hose down our vehicles next to a catch basin. We don't have that problem because it's kind of just goes into the ground there. Use dry cleanup methods like our mechanics use and stuff like that. So that's stuff that we inspect every quarter. So, and just to reiterate a lot of that construction site stuff, and I know a lot of the guys that are DPW, this is another short video that shows what's construction sites and things that so this is part of a series, but
during concrete saw cutting operations, be sure to vacuum or contain slurry. Create a pool of slurry by blocking the flow along a curb using sandbags or other material. Once contained, vacuuming the slurry with a wet-dry vacuum is the preferred collection method.
I'm not sure if we do this.
The slurry may then be poured into an open container and disposed of in the trash after the water has evaporated. Do not allow the slurry to enter the storm drains or to remain on pavement to dry out. Require concrete trucks to wash out in a designated location where wash water will be contained and will not drain into a storm sewer, drainage ditch, or creek. Place stockpiles of asphalt patching material on concrete or other paved surfaces and cover them to prevent contact with rain. Mix only the amount of patching material necessary to complete the repair. Sweep up and properly dispose of all patching material that is not compacted or left over from the repair. Use less harmful products rather than diesel for asphalt patching and cleanup activities. Clean trucks, equipment, and tools in designated equipment wash facilities where wash water will be contained. If no wash facility is available, clean equipment over a layer of absorbent material spread on a paved surface or heavy plastic sheeting. Sweep up the absorbent and dispose of in accordance with state and federal regulations. Make certain that hopper drain plugs are always sealed during collection. Check vehicles frequently for leaking fluids and notify a supervisor of significant leaks. Immediately clean up spills to minimize safety hazards and prevent spreading. Contain spills and leaks using absorbents and take steps to stop the leak if possible. Once the spill is contained, promptly dispose of the absorbents following state and federal regulations. Wash collection trucks only in facilities where wash water drains into the sanitary sewer or is collected and recycled. Do not allow wash water to enter the storm drain system. You should store materials away from high traffic areas to prevent accidents that might cause spills. Steps should be taken to prevent stockpiles of materials such as soil, road salt, and asphalt patching materials from being washed into a storm drain. Use containment walls to separate different materials. Placing a tarp over these stockpiles will also help prevent erosion.
There's only 1 more minute left on this construction activities.
Even effective erosion control will not keep all fine sediments out of stormwater. No matter the size of the project, measures should be taken to control sediment and prevent it from entering the storm drain system. An organic filter berm is a natural way to prevent sediment runoff. It is a 1 to 3 foot high berm of mulch and compost placed around a disturbed area. A silt fence is a filter fabric trenched into the soil and attached to supporting posts. The filter fabric must be buried at least 6 inches into the soil, or else the water may flow right under the fabric. A triangular sediment dike is a welded wire mesh shaped into a triangle that is covered with filter fabric. All of these methods use the same principle. They prevent silt runoff by slowly releasing the water after the sediment falls out. Additional sediment control can be achieved by placing wire-reinforced filter fabric directly in front of the storm drain inlets. This method must always be used in conjunction with other on-site methods. Otherwise, there will be too much sediment in the water and the storm drain will clog. By using these best management practices,
That's
you'll
it.
be
Those
helping
are
to keep our
just kind of
communities and
examples of,
waterways clean and healthy for future.
best management practices that we as the contractors and obviously us. So the final one is, when you do see something in the field, just talk to your manager, or you can call the DPW directly and look for me. So that's going to be it. And we do have a lab. We'll have the ability to go test things. If we do find some suds in the water, we'll be able to eliminate them easier. So we also, like I said, so we do have. If I'm take any questions, but I think we do are running for time here. So you do have the quiz in front of you. If you guys want to start that, just make sure you write your name and department. We'll collect these at the end. We'll leave them out there. But if you want to go through it, and then we'll go over it. I'll give you guys a couple minutes, and we'll go over them. You can sit at the table right there if you want. All right, are we ready? All right, so the first one is, which of the following is also known as stormwater? Anybody want to give the answer? All right, E, yep, that's correct. All of the above. Which federal agency mandates the cities and towns to manage stormwater and stormwater pollution? Yep. I gotta put this, the rest of them are all real ones, so it's not FDA, CDC, and FEMA. True or false, when rain or snow melt, runoff enters the stormwater system, it is treated and cleaned like sanitary sewer? False. False, yep. Which of the following is permitted to be disposed in our stormwater system? E. Yep. Only rain, snow melt. What does IDDE stand for? D, yep. So, but the A is one I made up. Illegal drainage dilution experiment, which is kind of like what some people try to do in their backyard when they try to dilute any pollution. I got a kick out of that. Which of these is not allowed to enter our stormwater system? So C, yep. Pet waste must be always disposed of in the following manner. B, yep, put in trash. True or false, foam in a waterway or wetland is always indicator of illicit discharge? False. It can be natural. Which of these is not a construction site best management practice? B, yep. And then 10 is what do you do when you suspect stormwater, illicit discharge in our stormwater, and that's either A or B. As I'm assuming that the management will notify us. And also I mean, if you are in the field, you taking pictures and stuff, obviously with a digital era, that always helps, because sometimes you might have a picture and by the time I get there, it's not there anymore, or, you know, so that we always encourage that. And then we also do have a good website if you want more information, tewksbury.ma.gov/stormwater. And then on the way out, if you want some more information, there's some handouts there you can take. There's a pamphlet, and there's also a flyer that we mailed out to all the residents last year with a lot of tips about stormwater. So that's it. That does it for us. That does it for us. Thanks for having your attention, and thanks for your time. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.